This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy for today, November the 28th, is a legendary Miami Dolphins wide receiver who also was a great receiver for Cleveland and even played in the World Football League. Black. Regardless, he actually has an NFL record. His 20.1 yards per reception is the highest among any player with 300 catches. He was a good running back in college and then was converted to wide receiver by Cleveland. He was traded to the Dolphins, making more appearances in the Pro Bowl. And he went back to the Browns after the World Football League crumbled. He played in 7 championship games, winning 3 of them. But he was great and all that. He was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 1983. His number 42 will always be remembered both Cleveland and Miami with passion. His name is Paul Warfield, who's now 82 years old. Paul Warfield was born in Warren, Ohio, and would attend Warren G. Harding High School in Warren. Of course, why would you not name your high school after Warren Harding, especially when you're Warren? Regardless of that, he was a good football player. He went to Ohio State, the Ohio State University, if you will, where he played for Ohio State's legendary team of Woody Hayes. He was a running back and defensive back in college, just like he was in high school, and would get 5 touchdowns in Ohio State's 1961-62 national championship season. He did quite well in all that, becoming first-team running back on the 62 and 63 All-Big Ten teams. He was an Olympic prospect in the broad jump, aka the long jump, and could have went to the Olympics, but he chose pro football instead. Cleveland wasn't so sure about things, but they decided to draft him in the 11th round of the 1964 draft, and people thought he was going to play DB, defensive back. But his play as a wide receiver impressed head coach Blanton Collier, and he was moved to be wide receiver. And it worked. He got 9 touchdown catches. He complemented Jim Brown, a great running back, and all that. The Browns would win 10 games, win the Eastern Division, and stomp the Baltimore Colts 27-0 in the NFL Championship game in 1964. The last time Cleveland Browns have enjoyed a championship. Anyway, Paul Warfield actually missed a massive amount of time for the Cleveland Browns in 1965, where he played in the Chicago College All-Star Game, which at the time had the NFL champion against star college players. Warfield shattered his collarbone and practically missed the 1965 season. He would be back for the last game of the season, but bruised his collarbone, missing the final game of the regular season. The Browns would return to the NFL championship game in 1965. Warfield caught 2 passes, but they lost to the Packers. Warfield would come back to form after his injury. And in 1968, he hit 1,000 receiving yards, which was pretty good, and 12 receiving touchdowns. The Browns were looking good to be the NFL's representative for the Super Bowl, but they ran into that pesky 1968 Baltimore Colts team that everyone thought was going to win the Super Bowl, but didn't. You know why. Anyhow, Warfield was shockingly traded after the 69 season to Miami for the 3rd pick in the 1970 draft. It was just a shock. The Browns would use the pick to try to find a quarterback. Otto Graham's departure, of course, was justified because of his age, but man, they couldn't find a good quarterback after Otto Graham. They picked up Mike Phipps, and it was lopsided because Phipps didn't really do anything for the Browns at quarterback. And Warfield was a major factor for the Dolphins in the 70s. So, anyhow, Dolphins head coach Don Shula jumped at the chance to get Warfield. And in his first season, even though he only caught 28 passes, he caught them for 703 yards, 25 yards per catch. So anyway, the Dolphins would lose the division round of the 1970 playoffs to Oakland. In 1971, he almost hit 1,000 yards. He was off by 4 yards. But he made 11 receiving touchdowns, which was good. Warfield was trying so hard. He got to the Super Bowl, but Super Bowl 6 was when the Cowboys crushed Miami 24-3. Warfield actually missed a few games in 1972 due to an injured foot. Nevertheless, Warfield did catch 7 passes in the postseason and helped the Dolphins beat the Skins in Super Bowl 7 to win the Super Bowl. He made 11 touchdown catches. That was the good news. The bad news is he had 29 catches overall. Nevertheless, he did okay, giving the Dolphins a trip to the Super Bowl where they beat the Vikings in Super Bowl 8. Warfield caught 27 passes in 1974. Helping the Dolphins make the playoffs, but they lost to the Raiders in the famous Sea of Hands divisional round game. And in 5 seasons with the Dolphins, Warfield compiled 156 catches for 33 touchdowns. And in 11 playoff games, he got 4 touchdowns. Anyway, the World Football League was getting hot and all that. And Toronto even had a team in the World Football League. And in the second round of the WFL draft, they decided to take Paul Warfield. It was kind of a weird move by the World Football League to try to compete with the NFL. Warfield, alongside Larry Zonka and Jim Kick of the Dolphins, made a massive decision. They decided to leave the Dolphins to play the 1975 season in the World Football League. He played in 74 with the Dolphins, but then he would play in 1975 in the World Football League's second season, what appeared to be more lucrative pastures in Toronto. At times, the CFL actually was bigger. They were trying to get players and got players more so than the NFL. However, this wasn't the CFL. This was the World Football League. Unfortunately, though, the dream was partially dead, as Warfield did play the 1975 season, but that was with Memphis, making 3 touchdown catches before the league folded mid-season. You may be asking, why did he spurn Toronto from Memphis? He didn't necessarily spurn the franchise from Memphis. Memphis was the franchise. The Southmen were actually the Toronto Northmen in disguise. Reason being is that the Canadian Parliament was so pissed off with a World Football League team being in Toronto, they were going to pass a massive bill in Parliament. And basically, the World Football League got spooked and decided to change course and move the Toronto team to Memphis. Parliament, eh? Regardless of that, Warfield wasn't sure what we do. He would be interested in rejoining the Browns. Memphis tried to get into the NFL, but failed. Warfield was persuaded by Art Modell, the Browns owner, to come back to Cleveland. So he played his final 2 seasons with Cleveland, getting 8 touchdown catches. Not bad. So Warfield has done pretty well for himself. His 1,121 postseason receiving yards were second at his time of retirement to Fred Biletnikoff. Obviously, that's not the case. So regardless of that, in 157 games with Cleveland, Miami, and back with Cleveland in the NFL, he caught 427 catches for 8,565 yards, 20.3 yards per reception, and 85 touchdowns. He would be inducted to the Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility in 1983, becoming one of only 5 Dolphins icons to make the feat, getting the Hall of Fame in their first year. Jim Langer, the center, Jason Taylor, defensive player, Dan Marino, quarterback, and Don Chula, the head coach, did so themselves. He was named on the 1970 NFL All-Decades team. He was part of the coin flip when Ohio State faced Michigan in 2006 in the game, which actually saw the 2 biggest undefeated teams at the time happen. The Wolverines and the Buckeyes. Ohio State won that game. Michigan would falter. They were pretty good in 2007. They were ranked number 5 to start the season. Then App State had to happen. Regardless of that, he was decent. And Paul Warfield should be praised. I mean, dude had a lot of things going for him. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond.